Growing up, it seemed like there were two types of families in the world: those who played board games together and those who did not. My family, we were not a board game family, not even a puzzle family. They just were not our thing, which is why when I went to a friend's house where a family did play games, I loved it. Until I didn't, because here's the thing. Even though it's called game night, which sounds fun, oftentimes these games were anything but fun. I discovered that even with a guest present like me, these games would frequently involve families fighting and arguing. Even the most innocent kind of game would inevitably get very, very competitive. But while this arguing could get really awkward for me observing from the outside, honestly, it was also kind of reassuring, because the fights I witnessed during those games sounded a lot like the kind of fights that happened in my house. Sure, our fights may not have been over Monopoly, but my sister and me, we could really get into it when it came to who borrowed whose clothes. My brother and I, we would argue over the TV remote and whether watching Saved by the Bell was more important than seeing highlights from last night's football game. I learned that while every conflict may look different for different families, the responses we have are pretty similar. As kids, we may have resorted to whining, door slamming, yelling, passive-aggressive comments, ignoring, glaring, eye-rolling. But isn't that true even as adults? When it comes to family, we can find ourselves doing the same kind of thing: door slamming, ignoring, passive-aggressive comments, eye-rolling. These aren't just kid moves, right? We've all seen generally reasonable adults melt down over conflict. Or maybe we were that adult. And there's a reason for our outsized and immature reactions when we experience conflict. Because even though we aren't kids anymore, the why behind our behavior isn't something we outgrow, at least not when it comes to family. The same moves we discovered as kids and probably refined as teenagers, we now use as adults in our own families or when we're around our childhood family again. Even though we change, often these moves don't. And that's what we're going to spend some time talking about in the next few weeks. The moves we make when it comes to family and how we can start to live in a way that makes the best moves for both ourselves and for the family we have. I don't need to tell you that tension in families is normal. And compared to our other relationships, tension in families is complicated, especially when it comes to the parent-child relationship, even when you aren't a kid anymore. In fact, that's one of the things that makes family tension so complicated. Even when we become adults or our own kids become adults, there's still this parent-child dynamic between us. Age, maturity, and stage of life don't change that. And this is tough. It's tough if you're the parent and you still see your now adult children as being your responsibility. You may feel the need to speak into their lives in areas that seem like they should be your business, but maybe aren't. It can also be tough if you are the adult child. Maybe you feel like you're still being treated like a kid, and you just want to be seen as capable and competent and independent. You may feel like you have to prove yourself, and sometimes proving yourself looks like standing up to or asserting yourself with your parents just to make a point. Like I said, family is hard, and maybe more than any other relationship, we can quickly fall back into old patterns, habits, and communication styles when it comes to our parents and our kids in a way we don't with other relationships. We pull out the old moves. But if we're being honest, the old moves aren't always the best moves. And no matter how dysfunctional our behavior may be, there is one indisputable fact: family will always be family. We can't change our family. We can't escape our family. We can't control our family. So what moves can we make in our families to optimize the relationship we have with them? That's what we're going to talk about today. There's a place in the Bible where the Apostle Paul wrote specifically about family relationships. It's found in a letter Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus, which we call Ephesians. And if we could all put the truth from this one verse into practice, it could completely change our experience with our kids and our parents. Paul wrote Ephesians to a group of his friends, people he wanted to encourage. And he wrote some very specific instructions about how Christians are supposed to act toward each other in various relationships. And we are going to look specifically at the parent and child verses. Paul wrote this: "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Paul referred back to the 10 Commandments from the Old Testament, so his audience would have readily understood this idea. Plus, at the time of Paul's writing, children did not have many rights. In fact, they had the lowest status of anyone. It was also a high honor society where children were expected to honor their elders. To do otherwise was considered extremely disrespectful. So the audience for Paul's letter would have read this and nodded along. But Paul didn't stop there. He went on, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." Now, this would have come as more of a surprise. As a parent, you had the right to treat your children however you wanted. You were the authority, and they fell under that authority, no questions asked. But Paul was giving specific instructions to the parents, the ones with the most authority in the house. And he used the word exasperate. It's also been translated as provoke or anger. Have you ever heard the phrase, "don't poke the bear"? It means don't antagonize someone. Don't deliberately cause a problem. Paul was sharing the same sort of thing, but not to the kids. He was telling this to the parents. He was saying, don't antagonize your kids. Don't do something or say something that's going to push them away and cause problems. In other words, Paul looked at the parent-child relationship and said, both of you have a part to play in making this healthy. Both of you are responsible for your moves. Both of you are accountable for how this relationship plays out. Children, honor your parents, show them respect. Parents, don't do things that you know will anger or frustrate your kids just because you can. Now, it's important to note that Paul wasn't just writing about young children or simply referring to kids. He was referring to the role of all children in a family dynamic. So even if you're in your mid-50s with a family of your own, you're still in the role of a child to your parent. Paul was making a point that has nothing to do with age. He was saying that no matter our role in the family, we all have something to do. We all have moves to make. The problem is, every single one of us here could list a million reasons why we should be the exception. Honor my parents? My dad walked out on us. I'm not honoring him. My mom over-involves herself in our lives. I am not honoring her. My parents are grumpy and angry and complain all the time. I'm not honoring them. You may be thinking, don't exasperate my children. My adult son won't move out and take some initiative. My daughter keeps dating the wrong kind of guys. How else am I supposed to get their attention except by exasperating them? Well, Paul wasn't saying that to honor and not provoke our kids means we sign off on every decision our parents or children have ever made. It doesn't mean we look past glaring mistakes and major flaws. It means we remember this: the role we have in our family does not change, and so what is asked of me should not change. I can honor and respect and elevate and love my parents. I can delight in, be pleased with, be satisfied with, and love my kids. We can do those things proactively. We don't need our parents or our kids to act a certain way so we can then respond the way Paul commanded us to. Paul was not giving us a conditional command like, once your kids or once your parents get their act together, then honor, then be content with, then love them. No. Paul was saying it's your move, not theirs. You make the move to honor. You make the move to be pleased with. You make the move to love. Think of it this way: honor is an action, not a reaction. Here's the truth. You can't change your family, your parents, or your kids, but you can proactively make a move to improve your relationship with them. You can make a move toward them that isn't dependent on them doing something first. You can respect the place they have in your life, even when it's difficult, because that place does not change regardless of age, regardless of the passage of time, regardless of your stage in life. So start to make that move today. Make a move to honor your parents in whatever ways you can. Make a move not to exasperate your children in whatever ways you can. No matter what that might look like, just keep this in mind. When it comes to family relationships, what if it was your move? Now let's get specific. What exactly would it look like for you to make a move toward your family? When your parent, step-parent, or in-law calls, even if you know the conversation may take longer than you want, pick up, talk, and give them more time than you might normally. When your adult son or daughter visit, ask questions from a place of curiosity and genuine interest, not from a place of checking up on or judging or snooping. Apologize. first. Pray for them. Be humble enough to decide, no matter what they say or do, that you won't treat them like they're stupid. Value the relationship above anything else, despite the annoyances, the frustrations, and reasons for disconnections. Don't permanently write someone off. Depending on your various situations, the move we need to make will look different. But what is true, no matter the family dynamic with our parents or with our kids, is this: we have a move to make. There is something we can do, something in our power, something in our control we have the ability to do. Question is, will we swallow our pride and actually do it? Will we take the first step? Will we honor? Will we refuse to intentionally frustrate? Chances are you won't feel like doing it. Sometimes it won't even feel like it's the right move. But it is, because God, who created you and your parents and your kids and everyone in your family, understands your situation better than you ever will. And He knows full well what it's like to make the move toward us, and continues to move toward us even when we move away. So today, consider this question: what would it look like for you to make the first move in your family? Then decide for yourself what you will do and do it. It's your move.